So, welcome, adventurers. Thank you for joining me today as I embark on the adventure of retelling the old Waterdeep Dragon Heist game that we played in. Also, just a precursor to the series, I'd actually run Waterdeep Dragon Heist once before and wasn't a big fan of some of the stuff in it. Several of the players had played through the module before and were familiar with some of the material in it, so I ended up not being able to use a few of the twists. Also, I'm starting the players off at 5th level and they end at 10th level. For example, in the original book, the Xanathar Guild had placed a spy in the Yawning Portal by killing an adventurer and filling his head with an intellect devourer. The spy is in the material there to keep tabs on the players. But since some of the people had played before, I didn't quite know if they were familiar with it, so I ended up just scrapping it. But this is one of a few twists that I was unable to use because I felt like they might already know it. So there are two major reasons for cutting the material. Either one, the players already know it, they got it, or two, I didn't like it. Like I said, I had already run it fully once before and then run it kind of partway through. So I was at like 2.5 times having run it before. And I want to make perfectly clear that just because I cut something, it's not because I didn't like the material. Because I know that later on in the series, the audience, they're going to be listening to it. They're going to hear a discrepancy and go like, why did you cut the part where the dude did the thing? That was my favorite part. And I'm going to be like, I know, but they already played through that. Also, one other thing that I need to point out in the forward, when we played Waterdeep Dragon Heist, not all of the players could make it to each session, so some could only make it every other one. Some would show up for a bit and then had to leave for a bit. And then we had like a month or two in between. There was a few breaks in between the adventure. So the party was a bit chaotic as people were rotating in and out, and, not all the characters were able to play each session. We started with 5 players, and then went up to 6, and then we ended with 3. So if some of the players seem really awfully quiet, that's because they usually weren't able to make a session. Anywho, our story begins in the city of Waterdeep, in the Forgotten Realms. It's a very large, wealthy, upscale metropolis. It's nice and mostly clean, but the squeaky clean streets are a bit of a facade, because underneath is a dark underbelly that the courts and law won't touch. Our story starts off in the famous adventurers' hangout, the Yawning Portal Tavern, which is run by Durnan. The legend goes that underneath the Yawning Portal is a massive dungeon, one which goes so deep that the place had never been fully mapped out. In all honesty, there's a second published book, which is another campaign called Dungeon of the Mad Mage. One of the advantages to having the players at 5th level is that they could technically go into the dungeon to explore, because the Waterdeep is 1 to 5, and the Dungeon of the Mad Mage is 5 and up. So technically speaking, I could kind of have them go back and forth and do adventures between the two. Never actually happened. I did try to pitch it a few times to them and say like, oh, hey, there's gold and magic items and stuff in the dungeon. If you want to go in there, you can go at any time and go on a little adventure. But we were so absorbed in the Waterdeep storylines once those kicked off that it never really happened. It never ended up being kind of a free-form adventure thing. But anyway, the tavern has this massive well, which are the remnants of an old wizard's tower that descends down into the dungeon. Some people go down there and come up fabulously wealthy. Some changed, and others descend and never return. The dungeon itself seems to have its own personality and goals, but who or what they are, no one can say. From the stories they've placed together, this place is magically large and changes all the time, with enemies roaming through their halls. The place seems to have this almost hypnotic allure, draws the wayward and those lost to it alike. Hanging over the entrance is a rope, which adventurers use to descend down into Undermountain. So, you guys, the party, are just chilling in the Yawning Portal, for whatever reasons you are. In the distance, there's a loud cheer, and a little crowd forms by the hole. You notice that there's an adventuring party that is going to descend down. There's a wide array of faces. Some are jubilant, cheering loudly. Others are egging them on, while some are shaking their heads solemnly. Another table is taking bets, asking how long they'll be down there, and which ones they think will survive. The tavern watches them climb to the rope, and they help them hoist them down into the black, carrying a torch which is guiding their way to the bottom. Once they shouted up the all clear, the tavern owner raised the bucket up, and things went back to normal. The adventures were forgotten. Beginning our rundown of the characters, First off the bat is our bard. He went, I kind of want to play a bard, but I don't want to play him too typical. Name's Wren. So I made him a high-strength bard, frontliner in heavy armor wielding a shield. Second, we had,
My name's Nana.
Hello, dearies. She's an elderly tiefling. Have you heard about my grandkids? You remind me of them. In my pocket at Worthless Originals. They're things all old people have. How did I get them? I can't remember. I think all old people just magically get them when they get to a certain age.
She was an aberrant tiefling, with tentacles for her arms and a mass of tentacles for her legs. She resembled a bit of an octopus, and wherever she went, she left behind a bit of an ooze trail where she would go. On her face was massive glasses that made her eyes huge and white hair up in a bun. Next out of the list was, My name's Tough Time. He's a blood hunter, and he's a very, very serious boy. He's got all his clothes at Hot Topic, because he thinks he's serious, but he's actually a new adventurer and tries to be edgy, but isn't. Fourth player was my brother, who went through the pre-game D&D angst of, I don't know what I'm gonna play, and I try to suggest some stuff, and he can't make up his mind, so he decides, fuck it, I'm just gonna roll for a random class. And he rolls a random class. It's a monk, which he's played before. He's like, nah, I'm not gonna play a monk again. I already played Michelle, and he rolls, and he gets a monk. No, not a monk, and he rolls again. And finally, gets something different. Cleric. Now, time to pick your subdomain. He looks down the list and he goes, Twilight Domain, that's the book series, right? No. Screw it. That's funny. I'm going to be the Twilight Domain Cleric. I worship the book series. I read them, their holy text to me. Fine. What's your race? He goes, what is the dumbest race to go with a cleric? And he's like looking down the list of races and like Loxodon. That looks funny. And so he made a Twilight Domain Loxodon Cleric. Finally, we had a Tiefling Warlock.
Peleios is a Tiefling Warlock. He isn't going to be the one who starts a fight, but he will finish it.
And he was kind of dark, bit of an edgy character who's constantly scheming and a bit mischievous. So, the group is just chilling when all of a sudden they hear a sharp, blood-curdling cry. It was coming from the well. A loud roar interjected the cry, and it was silenced. Shambling out from the depths of the dungeon was a massive green-skinned troll. It had blood dribbling down its front, some very old and some more recent. In its mouth is a ripped arm that was chewing on. They recognized it as one of the adventurers who had gone down into the hole earlier. The players then start a fight. This one was a bit lackluster, and it's just because I've run it several times. It's a short thing to get the players' feet wet, figure out how their characters were, kind of introduce them to, Waterdeep. In the original fight, the players are first level and can't handle their own against it. So the way that it's written in the module, it actually has Durnan roll his eyes and go, not again, pulling out his magic sword, Grimvault, and goes mano a mano with a troll. While the players fight off the Sturges, which are basically like swole mosquitoes. But my players are not first level, so instead of one troll, it is one troll and two of the buddies. And they're also toxin trolls, so they have pustules and toxic breath to worry about. But after a short fight, the players managed to defeat them. Thank you for your help, Durnan said, sheathing his sword. He took a rag and wiped the blood off of him. Much appreciated, Durnan said. Drinks on me! He gave the players their pick of some special brews from Snow Beetle's meadery. I gave him a list. You had spicy whiskey, which if you chugged around would give you fire breath, loose-lipped ale, which acted like a truth-telling potion, good berry wine, which gave you temporary hit points, and I was using the Taverns and Tankards magic brews rules, which meant that after you're drinking, you would get drunkenness, which initially did nothing, but then would give you stuff like 10-foot move speed reduced, penalty to passive perception, to eventually just blah, blah, blah. I think I liked the magic alcohols, and I used them here because I think it was an interesting, mechanic where you could chug a bunch of potions, but you might get drunk. And so each of them had this, benefit, but also this kind of soft downside that players could try and mitigate. The players took some wake-up brews, which mimic the effects of a short rest. And that was that. After the banter, the players are then approached by someone. Good day to you, fellow adventurers. The players see a red-headed, well-dressed gentleman.
I took notice of the fact that you are adventurers. I can tell by your propensity for violence and how good you are at killing things. Hey, we just saved your ass. Nope, I get it, no offense. But I was interested in hiring you for a job, because he sees you're looking for work. No, wait, sorry, screw that up. He first asks if you are looking for work, and then when you say yes, he goes, well, I have a job for you. The gentleman drags the group over to the booth. Please allow me to introduce myself. He pauses for dramatic effect. Volo. He surveys the table. No reaction. Volothamp Gadam. Nothing. Volo's Guide to Monsters? Crickets. Odds and Ends, Whiskers of Tails? Gadam's Guide to Critters, Volume 3? I used to have a column in Adventures Monthly? Wren explained out of character, oh yeah, a lot of us players know him, but we're pretending our characters don't to fuck with him. The only player who recognized him was Tuff, who approached him with a piece of parchment out. Mr. Godarm? Volo is fine. Mr. Volo, sir, can you please sign this? Oh, of course. He flicks his wrist once, and a quill appears out of thin air. What's your name? Tough Time? He writes, to my #1 superfan, tough time. Keep on dreaming, keep reaching, keep hoping, keep soaring. Truly, Volo. He handed it back to Toff, who looked a little disheartened. Oh, he's a bit full of himself, isn't he? Anyhow, Rolo, Wren asked, you said you had a job for us? Yes, indeed. An opportunity of a lifetime. Wait, I thought you said you had a job. Now you're saying it's an opportunity? Well, they are one and the same, you see. No, they aren't. Money's money. If you ain't getting paid, it's just a scam. Also, another thing, this is me, I have to clarify something, is that Wren, like a big personality quirk that he had, is that he was very literal. Like, anytime someone said something to him, he didn't quite get, like, similes and metaphors and stuff, and so he was extremely down to earth. And so he would always ask for, like, clarifications whenever someone would say something like that. And sometimes me as the GM would get confused, like, oh, it's like this player doesn't get it. And then they'd have to, like, no, because sometimes I'm in the moment, I just forget. And he has to clarify, like, no, me as character knows what's going on. I just have to pretend like I don't so that way you'll clarify. But anyway, I just thought I'd explain it in case anyone gets confused later on, is that's just what Wren does. Volo continued. I'll cut to the chase. After all, what they say is brevity is the art of getting to the point. I was out with my drinking buddy the other day. We were at the Skewered Dragon. I was shocked to find out he'd never made it back home. I'm afraid that something happened to him on the way back. I need to hire a group of adventurers to find him. It stands to reason that people who are good at killing are also good at finding, wouldn't you say? I don't quite follow, but you said you were willing to pay 100 gold pieces. I guess we'll find your guy. With a resounding, I guess we got nothing better to do, the party set out on their quest. They made their way to the Skewered Dragon in the dock ward. On their way there, they passed by the massive walking statues, protectors of the city. They've lain dormant for decades, but can be activated by whoever wields the Staff of Waterdeep to stave off the threats that are too large for them to handle. But right now the statues are just public fixtures, and you can see several kids climbing on their toes. The players reach the seedy Skewered Dragon in the rough-and-tumble dock ward. The bar has bits of roof falling off, trash out front, and broken windows. As they enter the dingy tavern, the place falls silent. Several patrons give them a steely glare before returning to their drinks. It doesn't take the players long to realize that they stand out here. Most of the other patrons are dwarves, while their menagerie consists of a Loxodon, Gnome, Human, and Tiefling. I also have all the players roll perception, but they all fuck it up, so I'm like, okay, never mind, you guys see nothing. Time to get some information. Wren suggests the group split up. Nana joins the table. They ask, what do you want? Oh no, Nana just came over here because I thought you might be friends with my grandkids. You're about the same age as them. The dwarf seemed confused. I don't think so. Oh, you'd like my grandson. He's just like you. Very smart, very clever, and handsome, too. She pulled out Werther's originals from her pockets. Want some candy? Nana has candy sweets for a sweet boy like you. The dwarf cautiously takes one and eats a piece. I asked Nana, how long has that been in your pocket? And the player was like, I don't even think Nana knows. Okay,
Well, the dwarf suddenly goes green in the face and looks sickly, and he starts coughing and sputtering. He tries to chug some ale and wash it down, but it coughs it up. His two friends look on, wondering what the fuck did she do? Nana goes,
I see someone's enjoying Nana's special candies.
totally oblivious to the dwarf in front of her, period. With that, we're going to cut over to Tuff. Tuff is just, trying to pretend to be burly and big, and he goes up to one of the rowdiest tables. But suspiciously, they're actually kind of welcoming. Come up, young man, have a drink, they say, sliding a drink over to Tuff.
I'm a big boy, so I'm going to drink the whole thing.
He chugs it down. Wren decided to take the task of going up to the bartender and ask, well, how do you do, fine gentlemen? Have you seen anything unusual here? Nope. Okay, well then, I got nothing. We cut back over to Toff, who's clearly struggling to keep it down, but he managed. The dwarf at the table she's talking to goes, well, now what do we have here? A heavyweight here. He seems like you'd be up for a little challenge, right? The dwarf produces a strong, dark drink. Since we're new friends and all, have another drink. It's on us. They snickered amongst themselves.
Tuff's a big boy, so he's got to drink everything.
Tuff chugs the drink down. He has this moment of triumph before getting a greenish tinge across his face, leaning sideways and collapsing to the ground. They jeer at Tuff. Guess he wasn't as tough as he thought he was. A dwarf steps over him. Wonder how much money he has on him. Before the thug can start rifling through Tuff's pockets, a hand is placed on his back and gruffly pulls him back. That's enough from you. He gets turned around to face Wren. I ain't gonna let you rob my friend there. Our burly bard Wren forcibly interposed himself between the dwarf and Tuff. Look, we were just looking for information. Do you happen to know anything about Raynar? As he said that, one of the patrons' eyes went wide with shock, then to a scowl. The dwarf readied his crossbow and fired into Wren's chest. You're asking a bit too many questions here, boy. That'll be your last. A fight breaks out in the tavern. This battle is already not going in the players' favor. They're outnumbered here 2-1, plus these dwarves aren't pushovers. The players are split. Nana's like, I don't think we're going to win this fight. We got to go. And Wren's fending off the three others like, no, we can't leave. Not with Toff. He's down. We can't leave him. But it gets worse when one of the thugs looks over to the bartender and says, hey, we might need to open a new tab here. The bartender nods and pulls a lever on one of the tabs. Issuing out of the tab is a long, viscous ooze that twists and separates into two amorphous blobs. These are booze oozes, or boozes, which made their way into the mosh pit and started wailing on the patient. They're literally oozes made of alcohol. Nana goes, oh no, this is bad. And she casts darkness, filling the entire room with a magical darkness. We gotta get out of here. Nana quietly slinks beneath the table, grabs Tuff, and she just books it out of the tavern on her tentacles, waiting outside for the others. But not everyone is on the same page. Peleios is a warlock, and he has devil sight, so he can actually see in the dark. He's like, I'm going to cast Burning Hands. I go, oh no. I describe it as, okay, you hit some of the dwarves, but it also hits one of the oozes, which is made of alcohol and ignites immediately, and it's standing next to the other one, which also ignites. And then in addition to that, they have an effect where whenever a booze hits someone, it covers them in alcohol. So now everyone else is on fire too. Wren goes down unconscious, as well as Zumbo. Entire place is on fire. Nana is like, I can't deal with this shit, and takes off down the street with Tuff's unconscious body in her arms. Peleios is the last one in the building. He's continuing to fire at the dwarves. At the time, he thinks like, I'm fine, I'm in magical darkness, but what's the worst that it could do? But there is one of him and 6 of them, so they do manage to beat his ass down, and he goes unconscious. So, in the aftermath of this fight, we have 3 players that got knocked out in the tavern. One is knocked out from the alcohol, and the only one who's actually conscious is Nana with Tuff, and they've escaped. We cut over to Nana and Tuff, who are in a side alley. Tuff eventually comes to, laying on a heap of garbage. Wait, what happened? Nana explained the situation to him, and he starts crying. We gotta help. We can't just leave them. Don't worry, little one. Nana's got this. She slinks her way up the building to the top. You, stay here. Nana then scouts out the skewered dragon. She's on top of the building next door, spying down on them. Out in front, a patron is talking to one of the guards. Yeah, there was a little commotion, small fire, it's been taken care of. Spying in the back of the alley, she sees the thugs holding her friends, dragging them into the sewers. We'll take him to the big boss. He's gonna want to know who's asking some questions about Raynar. Nana looks her way back to Tuff.
They're being taken into the sewers.
Tuff was like,
Sniff, sniff, what are we gonna do? You and I will rest, and then we'll go after them. Don't worry. Nana will keep you safe.
Both of them nervously laid down and rest in an abandoned back alley. We cut back over to the tavern earlier when I had asked about the perception roll and they had all failed. Behind the tavern keeper was a massive tapestry. Hidden within the artwork was an eye with 8 lines coming from it, the infamous logo of the Xanathar Guild, letting patrons know that this place was safe for their members. As the two nervously waited an hour, knowing that the party was being dragged farther and farther into the belly of the beast, that was where that session ended.